Hey everyone, Sean Lee-Davies here, and today I'm here with Bill Burnett, co-author of the New York Times #1 bestseller, Designing Your Life. He's going to talk a little bit about how to supercharge your creativity and stay relevant in the modern day workplace. Bill, thanks for joining us and welcome to Hong Kong.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your philosophy.
Okay, well, about 10 years ago, a good friend of mine, Dave Evans, and I got together to design a class for students at Stanford. So we put this class together called Designing Your Life, because I mostly teach design to design students. So we use a process we call design thinking or human-centered design to design products and services and experiences. And when you're a designer, you always come up with multiple solutions. You prototype stuff to see if it's going to work. And all this works really, really well for designing your life. And by the time, 10 years out, all the jobs are going to be different anyway. So if you don't have some kind of a dynamic process for figuring out what's next, you're just going to get stuck.
Bill, you bring up a good point there, because with all the talk of AI and the replacement of jobs, how do people kind of reinvent themselves?
Let's just step back and think, okay, in every wave of automation, jobs got eliminated and new jobs got created, right? When I got out of school as a young engineer, I was working on a drafting board, with a T-square and a triangle, and now I work in, three-dimensional CAD space. I do everything inside the computer. So, and that meant draftsmen no longer have jobs, and lots of people didn't have jobs. That's the one thing that everybody says is the very last jobs that will be automated are jobs that require social and emotional intelligence, jobs that require humans to connect with humans and to understand human needs. One way of looking at it is, hey, these jobs are going away. Another looking at it is like, in 10 years from now, there's going to be jobs that I could do that haven't even been invented yet. And some of them are going to be really interesting and awesome jobs. And particularly if you focus on the creative side of what makes a job worth doing, I think you're going to be fine.
That's all very well if you're like a young grad student, you're in the learning mode. What happens you're 45 years old? I mean, it's not as easy, is it, to redesign your life at that age? And a lot of people feel that at 45 really is too late to redesign.
In workshops we've done everywhere. One of the very first workshops we did was in New York, and there was a woman sitting right in the front, and she was 82 years old. And when we came to planning your life, we have a form, and you do these 3 plans for your life. And she raised her hand, and my partner Dave went over thinking, well, she's 82, so what's in? And she said, young man, this thing only has 3 spots for things. I have 6 things I want to do before I die. I need another piece of paper. So everybody thinks the rest of their life is going to be interesting. And there's some anxiety around what the changes will be. And so some of these things you just can't predict. Right. What you can predict is that jobs will change and that you're going to have to be a little more nimble about doing that. But what I notice is that people, when they get to sort of their 30s and 40s, they want to change their job anyway. They're kind of tired of being the banker, and they're looking for something else to do. But, having some design tools makes a huge difference in your confidence.
As an employer, as a boss of my own startup, how do you keep people, one, working for you, two, keep them engaged so that they can keep on working for you? Because they all want to have the perks of designing their own workspace and having a full-time salary.
Nietzsche's got a famous quote, I can deal with almost any how if I know my why.
Yeah.
You just, in a startup, you have a big advantage because it's all about why. Why are we doing a startup? It's a crazy thing to do. 9 out of 10 startups fail. What are you? Are you nuts? The odds are against you.
I am nuts.
Yeah, but all entrepreneurs are kind of crazy, but they have a real passion for the why. They have a problem they want to solve. So it should be pretty easy to find people, if they believe that that's an interesting problem, to work on it because their impact is so direct. I've always had the theory that people don't really work for me, they work for themselves. But what I've got to do is make the job interesting enough so that it's the one they want to do, right? I don't really know that I've ever motivated anybody, but I took a motivated person and said, you want to learn this? You want to learn this? Because I got a job, you could learn this stuff, you'd be awesome.
For the people who haven't had the chance to read your book, what are the 3 core principles behind your philosophy?
Get curious, because curiosity is the energy that drives you to try something new. Talk to people, because the answer's in the world. It's not in your head, it's in the world. Talk to people. And then prototype stuff. Build things to test your assumptions that you learned from being curious and talking to people. And then, after you've done something, tell your story. Because people love to hear stories, and that story will attract other people around what you need. So if you get curious, talk to people, try stuff, and tell your story, it's kind of a virtuous cycle that goes on and on and on. Because it turns out interesting people are interesting. You want to talk to interesting people. And as you learn this process of using your curiosity to drive you into the world, to radically collaborate with other people and engage with a bias to action, which are the mindsets of a designer, you just turn into a more interesting person.
Bill, where do you think the source of creativity comes from, or how can someone make themselves more creative?
Yeah. So I think one thing we know is that everybody has the same potential for curiosity, and you can train your brain to be more curious by being less fearful. Essentially, we shut down our curiosity by being afraid. I don't want to say anything stupid. I don't want to do the wrong thing. I want to act like everybody else. When I get in the zone and I'm having ideas, they seem to come through me rather than be authored by me. I'm sure when you're writing, you sometimes get in a zone where you're like, hey, where did all these words come from, right? So I do think that we have the ability to access our unconscious thinking, and then when we get together in groups, Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, talked about the collective unconscious, that there's some kind of a way in which we all have these unconscious patterns, called archetypes, that we draw on. And when I see something in you that you see in me and you see in someone else, that these patterns start to emerge.
Many great inventions have been invented simultaneously around the world.
Exactly. So I think without getting too esoteric or new age, we have the ability to draw on more than just our own consciousness for creativity.
Yeah. If there had to be one particular skill that you would recommend to everyone to learn, what would that skill be?
Learn how to be more creative by controlling your fear of being different. Okay. So just continue to challenge that fear and work into it until you are fearless. Fearless people are creative.
Now, Silicon Valley was the big guy in the room for a long time. Do you think China is going to overtake the US in terms of tech and creativity, or do you think the US still has what it takes to be the leader?
Well, I'm going to vote for the US side because I'm kind of a US guy, but I'm going to vote for it for a particular reason. Creativity fundamentally comes from a lack of fear, and creativity fundamentally comes when you believe that there is a possibility of making something different. I've worked with many Chinese engineers and Chinese designers. They're very creative, but they don't have a system that promotes difference. They have a system that promotes everybody being the same, or everybody conforming to a certain kind of social pattern. And I think when that happens, smart people just decide not to be creative. It's too risky. Well, I'm hopeful that the creative spark that is all over Asia and all over China will help redesign the systems, the political systems and other systems, so that the true creativity of those people can be realized. But it's hard to be creative in a totalitarian regime.
So you gave a workshop today at the Cage. How was that for you, and how special is that program here in Hong Kong?
Well, in Hong Kong, I think there's no other program like it. It's really quite special. It's interesting because a lot of other programs like this, they try to, we'll get 50 startups, we'll get 100 startups, and these are really focused, Christina Ventura and the people that are really focused on quality. So they're doing 3 or 4 startups and really nurturing those startups in a way that I don't see happening in other programs. So that's cool. And they have an amazing building, over in the south side of the island, which is, we have an expression at the Dees, space creates behavior. To be creative, you need to be in a creative space.
And Hong Kong doesn't have space.
Well, I don't have a lot of space. Certainly not spaces like this. It's really, it's as nice a space as we've got at the D School. I've seen all around the world. So I think they're really on the leading edge of trying to create an emotional connection to users, not just a technical connection. And so I think that puts a different spin on the stuff they're doing. And the people today at the workshop were some of the best people I've ever coached. It's already kind of a culture of creativity. And when you walk around the building, and I had a lovely tour with Christina, it's really a crazy, funky space. If you haven't seen it, you got to go see it.
Thank you very much for joining us. Hope you have a great time in Asia.
Thank you.
Cheers, Bill.
Thank you.